Hello again everyone, and welcome to my first video about Magic the Gathering. Thanks for watching, and I've thought about doing one of these for a while because it's a game that I've always enjoyed ever since I first started playing, which in my case happened to be back when Unlimited hit the shelves. And I still have cards in my collection from Unlimited Revised and even a few betas. But I played for many years and then kind of fell out for an extended period, but recently decided to get back into the game. So I went down to the local game store. There were some guys sitting around the tables playing. I found out that they were playing a format entitled Commander. So one night I borrowed the deck and played a game of Commander and actually won the game, and I thought, okay, you know, now's as good a time as any to get back into it. Well, the culture shock hit soon thereafter because I didn't know how long Commander had been out, and a lot of people had Commander decks that were built for just madness levels, man, just, you know, ultra fast tournament level stuff. And it was a bit frustrating to be playing pre-con decks, and somebody would invite you over to play, and then you know, they're using decks that personally cost them north of $1,000 for the cards that are in there, and here you are playing a $40 pre-con, you know. So after a while I figured, okay, if I'm really going to be able to compete, I have to make my own deck, and that's what this video is about. The first Commander deck that I built for competitive play. And so I was going through some of my old cards one day, and I found one that I thought, okay, I can build a deck around this. And so I did. Now it's a 5-color deck. I want to talk about the contents. I'll talk about why some of the cards are in there, and then hopefully get some feedback. And I will point out that there is one card that originally was in the deck that I've had to replace because I didn't know that that particular card had been banned for Commander play until I won my first game. And when I put the card down and won the game, everybody said, oh, that card's been banned. And I thought, you gotta be kidding me, man. You know. But anyway, the deck, the Commander series, of course, is you have your Commander card, the creature card, and a 99 card deck to go with it. And so let's start at the beginning, I suppose, and that is with the lands. Now, being a 5-color deck, I needed to be able to produce all 5 colors on a routine basis. So just to satisfy the basic land requirements, I used 4 plains, 4 mountains, 4 islands, 4 forests, and 3 swamps. And I had to take out 1 swamp just for to satisfy the 99 card limit. But other cards that I put into it were both dual lands and I guess what they call triple lands or whatever. But stuff like Abandoned Campground, Arcane Sanctum, Command Tower. Command Tower is kind of a Commander staple. You have to have one of those in there. Crumbling Necropolis, Crystal Quarry. Now, as you can see, some of these cards, Crystal Quarry is one that you can pay 5 mana into and then get 1 of each color, which helps in a 5-color deck, of course. Frontier Bivouac, Jungle Shrine, Mystic Monastery. I like that card too. I just I like the name, and the artwork on it's kind of cool. Nomad Outpost, Opulent Palace, Simic Guildgate, Seaside Citadel, Savage Lands, Sandstep Citadel, the Rockfall Vale. That sounds like an old B-52 song. The Rockfall Vale. Alright, Reliquary Tower. That's also kind of a Commander staple, or at least it is for me. I like playing with this card in a deck because, again, it says you have no maximum hand size, right? And there's some other cards that I have in this deck which become very beneficial when you're playing without having to meet the only 7 cards in hand at any one time. Alright, I also have Raucous Carnival, Thornwood Falls, and one of my very own Underground Seas. Now, this is one of the original buy-lands, original dual lands, and it is an original. It's you know, it's not a proxy, it's not a copy off a machine somewhere. It is one of the actual dual lands, and when I put it in play, sometimes people get their eyes get real big. Oh man, that's a real dual land. Yep, I like having it in there. All right, next up is artifacts. I have a Soul Ring, of course, because that's a Commander staple too. You kind of have to have one. And the second artifact that I have in here, in this deck there's only 2. The Marina Vendrell's Grimoire, and this is a good one. It says you have no maximum hand size and don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. Whenever you gain life, draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, discard that many cards. If you have no cards in hand, you lose the game. Okay, the deck is built around these 2 constructs. One is being able to protect myself and protect my cards long enough for this card here to really work. And the second is the instant win. I have another card in here that is an instant win card, which I will get to in a moment. But so the base structure of the deck is just prevention, removal, and damage to an opponent until I can make one of those two things happen. All right. Speaking of that, let's go to removals. I have some base removals in here. A disenchant. You always have to have a disenchant, I think. I mean, if in a 5-color deck, or if you're going to have white, you have to have a disenchant. Another one is Doomblade, destroy target non-black creature. You can always, even though it says non-black, very few people, in fact, in all the time I've been playing Commander over the last few months, I've never seen anyone play a mono-colored deck. Alright, Fierce Retribution. I got this one out of the, God, what was the name of the Western set that came out, I don't know, a year ago or whatever. Meteor Swarm and Murder. Oh my goodness. But they're just sort of like creature removal cards. I also have a number of instants. This one is one of my favorites. I tried to put this... I have one of these in every deck I now own that has white in it, because this is a very cheap way to buy yourself another turn. It's almost like being able to take 2 turns in a row, because target player can't cast spells this turn, and if the spell was kicked, which only costs another white mana, their creatures can't attack this turn. So this is a cheap way to, in essence, I mean, your opponent could still like play lands and activate artifact abilities, but they can't cast any spells, they can't attack you. So it's almost like being able to take 2 turns in a row. So I kind of love this card. I've picked up a number of them. Alright, I also have Riot Control. You gain 1 life for each creature your opponents control in a 4-player commander deck. That can be huge. Safe Passage. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you and creatures you control this turn. I've used that one once to help me actually win a game. Another staple in almost any Magic deck, Swords to Plowshares. And Unwanted Remake. Destroy target creature a controller manifests dead. Now your opponent will get a benefit out of this. They get the Manifest Dread, but this is only 1 white mana to destroy a target creature, and that's why I have it in here. I also put in an Ursa's Rage, and if you have enough mana out, enough mana sources, if you kick it, that's 10 damage to that permanent or player, which can't be prevented. Plus the spell can't be countered. So okay, that's my reasoning behind putting that in there. Alright, let's see. Enchantments. Rhystic Study. Oh my goodness. I found a bunch of these in my old collection of Magic cards, and I didn't know that, since it had been a while since I played, I didn't know that this card had caused a lot of controversy when it came out. And a lot of people were upset about the card, because every time somebody played a spell, the controller of this card had to ask, are you going to pay the 1? And that can get annoying. I understand that, but there are ways to just be simply polite about it. I mean, but people don't like this card, man. You put this in play and some people get all upset. Spirit of Resistance. If you control a permanent of each color, prevent all damage that will be dealt to you. I put this card in here because that's kind of the point of the deck, is to control a permanent of each color. That's the basis for the instant win that I had, is having a permanent of each color on the board. Tranquil Grove. I put this in here because I got into a game one time with some guy who his entire deck was based off enchantments, and one enchantment would trigger, which would cause another one to trigger, which would cause another one to trigger, then it would cause the first one to trigger again, and blah blah blah, yada yada yada. And his turns lasted forever, and it was just incredibly boring, not to mention frustrating and annoying. So I put this in to destroy all other enchantments, and I have other cards in the deck that will do the same thing, because I think you kind of have to do that. You kind of have to be able to control what the other guy is doing. Which brings me to sorceries and tutors, stuff like Act of Treason. Now here's the card that the deck was built around, Coalition Victory. Now I understand that currently in Commander this card is banned. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that until I actually played the first game and played this card and won. And then I was told, so it has been replaced. I'll talk about that. This particular card has been replaced. But when I built the deck, this was the idea. And then in some formats, I can still play Coalition Victory. And against some opponents, they don't. If we're just playing pickup games or whatever, they don't seem to care. I think it's a great card. I don't understand why they banned it. In order to get this to work, you have to accomplish a number of steps. You have to have, a land of each type, a basic land of each type, and a creature of each type, of each color, out before you can use it. It's not like it's not something you can do on turn 3 or 4, for sure. So why they chose to ban this, I don't know, but whatever. I've got a demonic tutor in here, and actually this is I have a couple of unlimited demonic tutors still in my collection, and then I have divination, emerge from the cocoon, explosive vegetation. I always thought that sounded a little, I don't know, poor choice of words perhaps. Profane tutor, there's a profane tutor in here, a worldly tutor, the ruinous ultimatum, split up. I like this card. Split up's a good card, and I actually won a game with that. Terminal agony, tranquil path, and walls of rage. Those are the sorceries and the tutors that are in the deck to help things move along. And then finally, well, counters. I have a number of counters. I have an absorb, a counterspell, deflection, desertion, dismiss, dissipate, undermine, rewind, force of will, and don't make a sound. Sounds like an old horror movie from the 80s, right? Don't make a sound. But you have to have some counters, and you just have to, man. If you're going to be playing Commander, you have to have a way to shut down some of the combos that people have out there. Which finally brings me to creatures. Now I had to have, when I set this up, I had to have a creature of each color to be able to get onto the battlefield and to be able to protect those creatures, and have one of each color out there. So using multicolored creatures was also something that was in the mix. So I have Altanak the Thrice Called. Now he's only green, but I have been able to actually get this guy in play on a couple of occasions. Avenging Angel, Baleful Strix, the good old corrupted shapeshifter. I like this guy. Deathgaze Cockatrice, the Elvish Mystic, Frenzied Arnax, I suppose that's how it's pronounced. Gisela, Blade of Goodnight. This is, of course, red and white, so some of the multicolored creatures that are here just to satisfy the creature of each color requirement. And I like angels anyway. I met an angel once, but that's a completely another story. Alright, this guy, the High Priest of Penance, I put this out because if somebody destroys the High Priest, with damage, I get to blow up one of their permanents, whatever that may be, and then I you bring it back from the graveyard and do it again. Miglaw's Maze Crusher. I like this guy because the oil counters allow you to do, you start with 5 of them, right? Yeah, 5 of them. And it allows you to, again, directly sort of impact your opponent by just removing some. Morite of the Frost, again, is a changeling creature which you can use to copy someone else. That can be, again, incredibly useful. Najal, the Stormrunner, Nightveil Spectre, Surek Dragonclaw. Surek Dragonclaw can't be countered. Creature spells you control can't be countered. Other creatures you control have trample. And he's kind of cheap for 5 mana. A 6/6 that has all that, plus flash, right? Which means he can attack as soon as you put him out. Unless haste, I'm sorry. Flashes, you can play him as an instant, that's right, I'm sorry. But for 5 mana, that's a pretty good card. I put a Serra Angel in because I like Serra Angels. Gorge of Briar Reach. Wait. Oh yeah, right, that's an elemental. And the Royal Assassin. I've tutored in a couple games from our Royal Assassin, and somebody was using a Lord of the Rings deck. They had to tap their guys to make food counters and stuff, and then I'd kill them with the Royal Assassin. That's always fun. Alright, so Root Greevil, Quirion Elves, I guess I'm saying that right. The Panglacial Worm, I kind of like this guy too. Again, there are ways to get some of these creatures on the table without having to pay all that mana. But Vran Executioner, Urborg, and Tergrid, God of Fright. Again, that sounds like a character in one of those 80s horror movies, but he has Menace, and whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from a graveyard onto battlefield under your control. That's not always useful, but when you get to use it, it kind of pays off. This is my Planeswalker that I'm using, because for 0 I can draw a card. I like being able to draw cards sort of much on demand. And then the commander that I'm currently using is the two-headed Hellkite. And again, because he has a draw engine built into him. As a 5-color creature, getting him out satisfies, at the very least, 20% of the requirement to win. Now, I know some people are going to say, well, you've got Coalition Victory in here, so this deck is invalid. Okay, Coalition Victory was easy enough to replace. There are other cards out there that allow you to instant win the game. And I replaced it with an artifact, or I should say, replace it with an artifact that each turn you can tap it and put a counter on it, and when you get to 6 counters, you win the game. So there are other ways to do that, but it was just fun. It was fun to finally build a deck that could stand up to some of the others, that could help control some of the others that were out there. And I remember like a fairly recent game I got into up at one of the other game stores that we go to from time to time. The frustration on the primary opponent, the frustration on his face when I would play cards like Orum's Chant, and one of the counters are Act of Treason. Yeah, he put out a big huge creature and I immediately played Act of Treason and just stole it and beat him up with it. It was kind of, that stuff is kind of cool. That's kind of why I played Magic. So I was glad not. Since then, I've built 3 others. I've built a Dragon deck, which works really well. I've built a Vampire deck, which is still, I've played it a couple times, but the Vampire deck is still a work in progress. And then I built a Denial deck, because back when I played Standard, in the day, back in the 90s and into the early 2000s and all that, Denial decks were my thing. And so I just thought, okay, if I'm going to build a Commander deck, I might as well just go back to what I know, right? Go back to what I know. And that thing is just filled to the brim with board wipes and control cards and denial cards and expulsion cards and destruction cards, and just enough offensive capability to do massive damage to an opponent. And I've won a few games with that one too. And it's, most people in the Commander format are not used to playing against denial decks for some reason. Anyway, that's my first deck, and I had fun putting it together. I'm glad to be back in the game. If you have any comments about it, please let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.
What is this thing, Nahiri?